Is what is good what the most rational and informed person would desire? Let's consider. Hello, philosophers. I'm Chico. Welcome to the Philosopher Show, where we consider the greatest questions of human history. In the last video on ethics that we looked at subjectivism, which said that what is good is relative to each individual, and what it is about the individual that makes a thing good is something like the individual taste or beliefs or something like that. We saw that this ethical system ended up being pretty weak because it can't pass the Hitler test. You know, if people have a taste for genocide, then this ethical view says that genocide is the right thing to do. Now, is there a way to fix this? Maybe we could take an analogy from aesthetics. So some people believe that beauty is totally subjective. There is no real beauty out there, but it's purely a matter of taste. Sound familiar? Kind of sounds like subjectivism, right? But they point out that some people have more refined tastes than others. There are such things as art critics, for example, and they've spent more time with pieces of art and studying beautiful things to the point where their opinion should count for more because it's more informed. So their taste is better than the average person's taste, they would say. So even though beauty is totally subjective, we would still have some criterion that would say that certain things are in bad tastes and certain things are in good taste. The Ideal Observer view pulls a similar move. It says that if you were to, let's say, be fully informed about everything, like all the different things that go into a decision and all the extenuating circumstances, and so you know all there is to know about all the moral decisions that could be made, your taste would be of better taste than other people's taste. And it wouldn't be quite so simple as that, because you would also have to, not only know all those things, but you would have to make decisions totally impartially. You would know those things, and you would have to make decisions not favoring yourself over other people or something like that. So if you could do those two things, if you can be fully informed and have total impartial concern for everyone, then you would be a perfect candidate for the right kind of taste. And we could just follow you like we follow an art critic and say, oh, well, they say it's beautiful, so it must be beautiful. I mean, I can't tell. I don't spend my time looking at art, but yeah, it must be. In the same way, we could go to this person and say, whatever you say must be right because, your taste is better than mine. But of course, the problem is, whom do you know like this? There's nobody that's fully informed of all the details and totally impartial. So instead, what we need to do, the view goes, is we need to be as informed and as impartial as possible. And once we get as informed and as impartial as possible, then we see what our tastes say, and that is our best estimate of what is good and what is bad. So this view is still a form of subjectivism because it's still based on somebody's feelings or somebody's desires, something like that. But now it passes the Hitler test because the idea goes, a person who had impartial concern for everyone and was fully informed would not choose genocide. Now, there's a lot to be said in favor of this view against subjectivism. So first of all, subjectivism again said that our tastes are going to tell us what's good and what's bad, or our beliefs or our desires or something like that. But our tastes and our desires come to us pretty screwed up. If you think about children, they'll do things that are just not good. If they see somebody has something they want, they will club you over the head to try to get it because they don't know any better. Or if they taste candy for the first time and they think, oh, that tastes good, they will want to eat until they puke. Our desires come to us totally wild and untamed. And in fact, in the ancient world, they would say that your desires make you a slave. And the only way for you to be free is for you to master your desires. Now, one benefit of this view is that it makes our desires work in harmony with our reason. Now, you don't get me wrong, you don't want to get rid of your desires or your tastes or anything like that, because they actually are very helpful. So for example, nowadays, if you saw somebody has something you want, you might have an inclination to punch that person and take it, but there's an aversion there that's overwhelming, right? Like, oh, I can't do that. No, that's wrong. That aversion helps you to do the right thing. Now, that, of course, is because you've been trained to have that aversion. In the same way, this view has our tastes and our desires sort of subservient to our reason. And from there, they should be able to just help us to do the right thing. Another problem with subjectivism was that our feelings change a lot, right? Our tastes change. So you might at one time feel that it's right to hug your neighbor, and at the next moment feel it's right to murder your neighbor, right? And it can happen so quickly. If what is right is dependent upon your feelings like that, well, I mean, everybody's screwed. But if we are looking at an ideal observer, a person whose tastes or feelings are subservient to their rationality, then we could avoid that. It also explains contra-subjectivism, how it seems like we can like some things that are evil, some things that are bad. So on subjectivism, whatever your taste is, that's what's good. But so it's like whatever you like is good. But can't we like bad things? It seems like that's a very plausible thing. It seems like everybody knows something that they like that they shouldn't be liking. This view explains why, because some of our tastes are irrational. So we do have tastes that are bad. We do have desires that are bad. It's only when we're fully rational, if only when we're fully impartially concerned for everybody and we're fully informed that our tastes are good. So those are some benefits for this view over subjectivism itself. But there are plenty of objections to the view. So, for example, it wants you to be impartial to all people, and it seems like we should be partial to some people. So, for example, you feed your children, you don't want them to starve. You can't feed every child in the world. So you're treating your children partially. But it seems like you should, right? It seems like you should be treating your children different than you treat other people's children. They're your charge, so, you have to take care of. But on this view, you should treat everybody totally impartially, so you couldn't treat them in a different way than you treat everybody else. It's worth noting, by the way, that there are some philosophers that do think that you should treat everybody impartially, including your own children. So they would argue, for example, like for public school in this way. They would say that if you send your children to private school, you're favoring your children, but you shouldn't favor your children. You should treat all children totally equally. So you should put your money into a pot that is equally distributed and everybody gets an exact same education. It's harder to see how this is possible when we're talking about stuff like clothes, food, after school activities, home life, loving somebody, like how do we distribute all that equally? That seems a little bit crazier. I don't think you could do that without some absurd amount of government. And even with the government, you can't really parse out your love to every child in the same way, right? There's going to be just your child that you've got to love in a particular way. A second objection: what would a fully informed person desire in a given situation? Well, how could an unfully informed person know? It seems like in order to be fully informed, you're going to have to be omniscient, right? But a not fully informed person can't know what an omniscient person would desire in a given situation. So, for example, imagine a mad philosopher captures you and ties you up into a chair with your finger on the trigger of a gun, and the gun is pointed at the mad philosopher's head, and the mad philosopher is about to press a button that will blow up the entire earth. Okay, now, the right thing to do, most people would say, I think, is to kill that philosopher rather than allow that philosopher to kill everybody else. But if the philosopher is just testing you and is not actually going to press the button, then that would be the wrong thing to do. You wouldn't want to shoot that person. So a fully informed person is going to know whether or not the philosopher is just bluffing. But you can't know that. So let's say that the philosopher is bluffing and you're not fully informed. How are you going to choose to not shoot that guy? You're going to have to choose to shoot the guy. That you're going to, for all you know, that person is going to press the button. So you can't know what a fully informed person would do. So it seems like, how do we apply this test? A third objection, you work to feed yourself, but not to feed other people. At least not wholly to feed other people. That shows some kind of partiality to yourself. So you're not impartial in your reasoning process. Does that make you irrational? Seems like it doesn't, does it? Right? You're not irrational for trying to feed yourself, for favoring yourself amongst other people in trying to feed yourself. So it seems like the impartiality, the ethical impartiality that is invoked here is not it's not the same as the impartiality we need for reasoning. The impartiality we need for reasoning, is that we don't want our personal biases to clog up our reasoning process. But that's not the same thing as the kind of impartiality that's being invoked here. A fourth objection, think back to our art critics. They can disagree, right? So if our art critics can disagree on their tastes, and our ideal observers are going based on their tastes, can our ideal observers also disagree if it's just a matter of taste? And if that's the case, then how do we pick which ideal observer we're going to follow? Do we just pick however, the most amount of ideal observers? But think about it. There are no real ideal observers. So these are all fictitious people. The point here is we don't have a definite answer as to what the taste of an ideal observer would be. It could be multiple different things. So although this is a huge improvement over subjectivism, there still are some big objections that are in the way here. In any case, let me know what you think in the comments. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Adios.